Bienvenue, almost a whisper. It's the middle of the night. The house is quiet. Everyone is asleep. I've been lying awake for over an hour, and I've finally stopped pretending that I'm going to stop being awake anytime soon. So I've gotten up and gone downstairs and stood in the kitchen for a moment with the cold floor under my feet and the dark garden visible through my window and thought, well, all right then. I've put on my cardigan, I've made something warm, chamomile, because it seems right for 2 a.m., though I'm not convinced it actually helps. And I've gone through my garden very quietly, the lavender brushing against my leg as I pass the row of it, and I've opened the gate at the far end, the one we almost never use, the one that leads out beyond the estate's edge. I'm sitting in the meadow. The grass is still warm from the day. It's an extraordinary thing, warm grass at 2 a.m, the heat of a summer day still held in the roots, and the earth and the long stems pressing against my ankles. The meadow is a different world from the garden. The garden is tended, contained, known. The meadow is none of those things. I can see the estate behind me, dark windows, the particular shape of the roof against the sky, and ahead of me there's just open field and long grass in the dark. Sit with me if you're awake, or put this on quietly if you're somewhere between sleep and waking. Either way, come into the night. If you're listening in the dark right now, good. Stay in it. If you're not, and it's fine if you're not, I know most of you will find this in the morning. Can you make it darker? Can you turn off a lamp or close a curtain or move to somewhere in the house where the dark has been allowed to be dark? The hearth on this particular night is the texture of a house at 2 a.m. There's something about a house in the small hours that is entirely different from a house during the day. Even the same rooms, the same furniture, the same views from the windows. At 2 a.m., everything is quieter than quiet. The sounds you hear are the ones the house makes for itself when it thinks no one is listening. The creak of a beam, the particular hum of the refrigerator, the sound of your own breathing, which you somehow never hear during the day. If you want to make something warm, do. Chamomile, or hot water with a slice of lemon, or simply a cup of something that requires holding in both hands. You don't have to, but there's something comforting about having something warm to hold when the night is very large and you are quite small inside it. The hearth tonight is the warmth of a house that is sleeping while you are not. Let that be enough. I brought my book of Shakespeare. I always bring Shakespeare to Midsummer. The way you bring a particular coat in October or a particular hat in June, A Midsummer Night's Dream belongs to this week. Not just the play, which I love and which I think Shakespeare understood something in that he perhaps couldn't have explained directly, but the feeling the play catches. The idea that summer is a time when the usual rules don't quite apply. When the world is softened, permeable, slightly enchanted, when being awake in the middle of the night in a meadow makes a certain kind of sense that would not exist at any other point in the year. Oberon speaks this, and there's something in it that has always felt to me less like poetry and more like a promise. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and the nodding violet grows, quite over-canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses and with eglantine. There sleeps Titiana, some time of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight, and there the snake throws her enameled skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows. He means, I know a place where the world is specifically, particularly itself, where the flowers are the right flowers and the light is the right light, and the air has a quality that you would not find anywhere else. I think the meadow is that place tonight. The warmth in the grass, the dark that is not quite uniform. There are gradations to it, the sky slightly lighter in one direction, the silhouette of the tree line at the edge of the field, the difference between a cloud dark and a clear dark above me. I know this bank. I'm sitting in it. The ballroom tonight is a different place entirely. I'm lying in the grass. It's exactly as strange and exactly as right as it sounds. The ground is warm. I said this before, but it bears repeating because lying in warm grass at 2 a.m. is one of those sensory experiences that your body simply cannot prepare for no matter how well you know it's coming. The warmth of a summer day that has pressed itself into the earth and stayed there. The grass against my arms. The sky directly overhead, enormous and properly dark for the first time in weeks. The solstice has passed, and the nights have begun their slow return, and tonight the dark has committed fully. The music will play now. No journal, no list, nothing to do. Just lie there and let the music happen to you, with the sky above you and the warm grass beneath you, and the night doing everything it does. When the music ended, what I heard was this: nothing and then everything. The absence of the music, and underneath it, the meadow. Something small moving in the grass near my feet, an insect or a mouse, or simply the grass settling, and above me the stars doing their completely indifferent, magnificent thing. Lie there a little longer. As I came down the stairs on my way out, I passed Harvey's door. He was talking in his sleep. Just a few words, not words I could make out really, more like the sound of words, the rhythm of a sentence with the language removed. He was completely elsewhere, entirely convinced of whatever he was doing in his dream, and the particular quality of his voice, so much like his waking voice and somehow nothing like it, made me stop on the landing for a moment and just listen. Children sleeping are so completely themselves. Harvey, arms flung wide across his pillow, solving something in his dream with complete conviction, talking away to someone who exists only in that particular country that closes when you wake. I stood on the landing in the dark and listened to him for a moment, then I came downstairs. I've been thinking, out here in the meadow, about the first time he saw a full night sky. He was perhaps 3. We'd been away somewhere, staying somewhere rural, somewhere with no light pollution, and I carried him outside one night when it was very clear and very cold, and I turned his face up toward the sky. The silence that came over him, the absolute total shock of how many stars there are when you are 3 years old and have never been somewhere dark enough to see them all. He didn't say anything, he just looked. I remember his weight in my arms, and the cold, and the extraordinary sky, and him simply looking, a child encountering the infinite for the first time, with no framework for it yet, no word for it, just the pure, raw, unmediated experience of, there is so much more than I knew. I've carried that moment with me since, the shock of stars. I should describe this Meadow Beyond the Gate properly, because it's not where I usually am, and you deserve to know where we've gone. The meadow begins just past the gate at the far end of the garden, a gate I rarely use, partly because the latch sticks and partly because the meadow has always felt like it belongs to a different category of place from the estate. The estate is tended, known, the meadow is not. Long grass, knee-height in places with wild flowers I could name in daylight but can only sense now as a different texture against my legs when I walked through to find my spot. There's a slight slope to it. I hadn't remembered that until I was lying in it and noticed that the sky was very slightly tilted, and then I laughed quietly at myself, and the night absorbed the laugh without comment. The estate is behind me, dark windows, the shape of the house against the sky. I can see my bedroom window from here, dark, the curtain exactly as I left it, and something about seeing your own house from outside it at 2 a.m. when the house thinks you're inside is deeply strange in a way I don't entirely have language for. The house looks very complete without me in it, self-sufficient, not waiting. Ahead of me, the field, unknown, going on past what I can see into a dark that my eyes will simply not resolve into information. There are sounds out there, something once that was probably a fox, and the continuous low susurrs of whatever lives in the long grass, and occasionally something that might be wind but is calm enough to be the grass just settling. The meadow has its own breathing. The sky is, I want to choose the right word here, serious? A serious sky? Not decorated, not performing, just immense and dark and entirely itself. There are so many stars visible tonight that the usual constellations I know have become difficult to pick out, buried in the context of everything else. The Milky Way is a suggestion across the center of it, a slight brightening, the accumulated light of things so far away that calling them stars feels imprecise. I lie in the warm grass and I think about the word boundary. The gate is the boundary of the estate. I've come through it. I am now in the place that is not estate. Ungroomed, unmapped, not mine in any possessive sense. The long grass belongs to itself. The wild flowers belong to themselves. The dark belongs entirely to itself. And here I am, at 2 a.m., a person who could not sleep, sitting at the exact edge of the unknown and the known, the tended and the wild, and finding that the unknown is not frightening in the slightest. It is warm. It smells of grass and something faintly sweet. Some night-flowering thing I cannot identify. Something that blooms specifically at this hour, that only the night sees. I can breathe it in slowly. The chamomile's gone cold in my cup, and I don't mind. This is what the night is like when you arrive in it willingly. This is the estate at its boundary, and past the boundary, the meadow, and above the meadow, the stars, and somewhere in the grass near my left hand, a small creature going about its completely indifferent business, and the whole enormous night doing nothing in particular except being exactly what it is. I'm so glad I got up. A letter came this week from someone who wrote in the middle of the night. I could tell by the timestamp, though we don't usually mention such things. She wrote, I'm awake at 2 a.m., and it's not by choice. My mind won't stop. It hasn't for weeks. 2 in the morning for me is worry, not wonder. It's the time when everything I can't solve in the day comes for me at night. I don't understand how you can be in the dark at 2 in the morning and find it beautiful. What's the difference? What am I missing? I want to answer this honestly because I think the honest answer is important. The difference between 2 a.m. as worry and 2 a.m. as choice is not a character difference. It is not that some people are built for the night and some aren't. It is not even really a practice, not something you can simply decide to feel. The difference is, are you awake for the night or against it? When the night comes at you, as it does, as it has, as it will again, it brings everything you haven't finished, everything unresolved, every fear that is patient enough to wait until you are horizontal and defenseless. That is real. That is the dark being used by anxiety. And anxiety is not romantic. And it's not midsummer magic. And I don't want to pretend otherwise. What I can say is this. There have been nights when I have stopped fighting the wakefulness and simply gotten up, gone to the kitchen, made something warm, opened a door, and found, in the act of going willingly into the night rather than lying in bed being ambushed by it, that the night rearranged itself slightly, became not the place where the fears lived, but simply the place where the house was quiet and the grass was warm, and I was, for a little while, a person who was awake by her own choice. Not every sleepless night can become that. I don't want to pretend it can. But if you find yourself awake again and you've been awake for long enough to know you won't be sleeping, open a door. Just open a door. The night, arrived at willingly, is a different country from the night that comes for you. I hope you find it. I walk back through the gate as the sky begins, just barely, almost imperceptibly, to lighten at the edges. Not sunrise, not close to sunrise, just the very first suggestion of a change in the quality of the dark, a slight cooling at the horizon, the sky at the east marginally less absolute than it was an hour ago, a shift so gradual that I'm not entirely sure it's real, and then I look away and look back, and yes, there it is, the night beginning its return trip. The gate latch sticks again on the way back, because it always does. The garden is exactly as I left it, the lavender row, the bench, the path up to the house, the back door still unlocked. I go in quietly because the house is still sleeping and I am still, somehow, on its good side. I rinse the cup, I go upstairs. Harvey's door is quiet now. I go back to bed.